I was at work the other day when I Googled a gnome. It's not really important what that was for, but what it did do is it reminded me of a story back when I was in middle school and how a simple garden gnome destroyed me and my friends' relationships. It caused arguments, fights, and ultimately ended in us actually no longer being friends. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know, when was the last time you got in a fight with your friends? Maybe it'll be funny. Maybe just as funny as this one. Okay, bye. I had this flashback today while I was at work that just reminded me of a story. And what it was a gnome almost destroyed my entire friend group. I had to go to a summer camp thing for school. It wasn't quite summer camp. It was in like near the end of the school year in May. But basically it was like a weekend retreat where my entire grade 6 class got to go to a camp and basically just hang out for the weekend. It was like kind of a cool trip, like looking back at it, right? I was like, yeah, we get to go away for the weekend, go camping and stuff. I mean, it's one of those like bougie ass camps where you don't actually like camp in a tent, right? You camp in like a fucking house or something and you're all sharing a room. The reason I remembered this camp is because right here, you can kind of see it, chat. There is a giant 80-foot tall rope swing that you like strap in and they just like it's huge. It's fucking massive. There was going to be a gnome hidden in the campsite. And if you had possession of that gnome at the end of the trip, you got a huge prize. There was some rules. You had to hide the gnome. You couldn't just like hold on to it. You had to hide it somewhere. And another challenge was there was some limits as to where you could go. There's kind of like a cliff face here. It had to be on this side of the cliff face and couldn't be behind this building. And I think it kind of had to be in like this kind of circle area, right? So you couldn't like go down to the beach and hide it. You couldn't go all the way up here and hide it. You kind of had to hide it, you know, near the center of the camp. And if you found the gnome, you could take it, go hide it, but then you had to update one of the teachers of where you hid it. For the first full day, no one found the gnome. No one had no idea where this gnome was. Until day 2, I started to notice that there was 2 girls hovering around an area. They were guarding something. So what I did was I went to my friend group, and at the time it was about 8 people. And I remember talking to them, I was like, guys, I think that these girls have the gnome. And I think that we can work together to distract them and get the gnome back. Don't say you had friends. Yes, I had friends. One of them is still my friend today, which he's been in chat. And if you ask him about this gnome story, he will cuss me out aggressively. It's really hard to see it because it's Google Maps, but this is like a giant wooden stage or platform. There was a tiny little hole on one of the sides. I don't remember which side, but the gnome was in there. And the reason they chose here was because it was so out in the open that like they could see from any direction if someone grabbed the gnome. What we had done was we had waited for an event to start where everyone needed to attend. So it was the whole class, the girls that were guarding it, all of my friends. The event was in this building. I remember as soon as they let the event out, I just turned to my friends and I was like, I'm going for it. And I fucking hauled ass as fast as I could to the freaking stage here. I was about here grabbing the gnome when they noticed from back here. Anyways, by the time I had found the gnome and pulled it out, the girls had obviously seen me now, and they said they were just gonna follow me to see where I was gonna hide the gnome next. They were not gonna let me alone. He pulled out his gnome. Okay, Jesus Christ. What I ended up doing was in this area, I grabbed the gnome, I ran into the woods here, trying to lose them in the trees. It's a very dense forest. It doesn't really show that well here. I then ended up looping back around at some point and just booking it across the field. They were still like in pursuit following me. I was running through, I ran under that 80-foot swing set. I ran underneath it. Thank God no one was going, but I do remember crossing this path. And then at that point, I remembered we couldn't hide it like past that. So I had to turn back around. So at that point, I turned back around and I remember, oh man, I wish I had a better photo here, but this building is kind of like one of those like giant, like tarp bubble buildings. Just Google the camp. Oh yeah, maybe we can see if we can find better photos of the camp. I don't know if... Oh, this is actually relevant. This will come into play later, this type of room. So I'll keep that in mind. I'll try Bing Maps like someone said. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a little bit better. Thank you. Shout out Bing. Shout out Bing. W Bing. Holy. Okay, you can kind of see this tent is a little bit better. What happened was, as I was kind of running back towards this area, I remember falling down about a 10-foot hill that was just rocks. I fell down that hill, cut my leg open, cut my arm open, but I still had the gnome. That was the most important thing, was the gnome to me. After I had fallen with the gnome, I noticed as I was laying down that there was kind of a little spot that the gnome would have fit. So I quickly threw it in there, kicked some rocks over it, pretended that I still had the gnome in my jacket, and I kept running. Genius play. Listen, I'm gonna take full credit here. I was thinking at 1 billion miles a minute here. Okay, sneak level 100 activated. After I was running with the gnome, I then ran into this area here, which is where those little campsites, these little houses were. There's a bunch of these little cabins in this area. You can kind of see a couple, right? Like there's one right here. I ran up to one of those cabins, and the girls at this point had finally caught up, and I made it look like I put the gnome under one of those cabins. 5-head move. I waited to make sure they could see me putting it there. Then what I did was I got back up and I kept running. And at this point, this is where my big brain plan kind of fell apart. Remember how we're not allowed to go into this area? It's because it's really hard to see, but there is a cliff here. I've proceeded to fall down that cliff. It was like 30, 40 feet. It wasn't straight down, but it wasn't like this. So while pretending to hold on to this gnome, I was full bore sprinting, and I was pretending to hold on to it just in case they thought I didn't hide it and trying to trick them a little bit. And I just fucking yeeted myself down this cliff. Full force. I was just like, this is it. I was kind of like the scene from Hot Rod. Dude, I was fucking cooked, dude. It was so over. It was so fucking over as I'm just falling down this goddamn cliff while pretending to hold on to a gnome. For some reason, the girls decided not to follow me down the cliff. I don't know why. But what ended up happening was, after I fell down the cliff, picked myself up, I walked back up these staircases here, and they were waiting for me at the top of the stairs. And when I got to the top of the stairs, they said, "You can't hide the gnome down there." And I said, I didn't. Chat, they thought I still had the gnome the whole time. They didn't see me place the gnome at all. I had like fully bamboozled them. And dude, I'm telling you, the aura that I had around camp was insane. You peaked in 6th grade. Fuck yeah, with this goddamn gnome. We're gonna keep going now because the story starts to get a little interesting. Believe it or not, it's not interesting yet. I told the teacher that I was supposed to where I hid it. And then I went back to my friend group and I told my friend group of about 8 people, I was like, guys, I got the gnome. I know where it is. And they were like, dude, sick. We'll all take turns like doing a rotation check and checking up on it, making sure it's gonna be there. And we did for about half a day until later that day, a different one of my friends came up to me and he told me, he said, Elijah, I know where the gnome is. And I was like, my pale as I was like, what the fuck? How do you know where the gnome is, right? And so I was like, what do you mean? Like, just trying to play it cool. I'm like, where's the gnome? When I was walking up the trail to our next camp activity, I looked down the hill and I saw the red hat in a pile of rocks. And he was like, but I couldn't grab it. There was too many people around. I'm letting you know because if you get an opportunity to grab it, you should sneak it out with us. Now I have a choice to make, chat. Defend my group of 8. We were ride or die. Or I could go with this new group of 3 other people, which would have been a smaller group, and we could have then split the prize, you know, gotten a little bit more. I want you guys to know that I did not betray my group of 8. So all of you calling me a rat, fuck you, assholes. I went back and grabbed the gnome before they could move it because I knew that this group of 3 now was gonna take it. So I was like, I have to move the gnome. I don't get a choice. So I went back and grabbed the gnome and decided to do the thing that I did earlier. I put it up my hoodie and I kind of just walked into the woods here, and under one of these cabins, I just threw it under a cabin. And as I walked back out, I went to my teacher. I was like, I had to move the gnome. It was compromised. He's like, all right, where'd you put it? I was like, under cabin, and I said the number. I remember saying the number. I don't remember exactly which number it was, but then I went back to my group of 8, and I told my group of 8, I was like, guys, I had to move the gnome. And they're like, oh, whoa, why? And I was like, this group of people, and I said their names, they found it. That didn't go over very well with a lot of the group. A good chunk of this group of 8 got really mad at me that I made this executive decision to move the gnome without telling them first. You know, a couple of them were like, you should have told us where you were going to move it, because then we could have like helped protect you, make it better. And I was like, well, I didn't have time. I didn't know when they were going to go grab it. I had to move it. They were not happy with that, chat. So this created naturally a little bit of tension amongst the team of 8. And now I'm sitting here going, I just told all of these 8 people where this gnome is now, and now there's tension in our group. This is where I decided to be a rat, because what I did was I went back to that group of 3 that said they knew where the gnome was, and I went to them and I was like, guys, I know where the gnome is. They're like, what? I was like, it got moved. But I didn't tell them that it was me that moved it. I saw one of the other guys going out to one of these cabins and kind of shuffling around underneath. I think it's under one of those cabins. Dude, I was an asshole. I forgot to tell you guys in the intro that there's only 1 more week left to get free international shipping on some of my new merch, including some of the poster designs. So if you guys are interested, head to bokabola.store. It'll be the first link in the video description. Bye. What happened was I then made one of them move it. I told them, I was like, I think they were digging around this cabin. I know that there's an empty stump nearby. Do you think if we get the chance, one of us could go grab it and go put it in this empty stump? And the empty stump was like somewhere in here. I literally could not tell you where it was. It was somewhere near the cabin. After some faffing about, I decided I wasn't gonna move it. I wasn't gonna go any further than that. One of the group of 3 that I was with did find it and did move it. Moved it to the stump. So now I go back to my group of 8 people and I'm like, hey guys, the gnome's missing. Guys, I have no idea where the gnome is. And they're all looking at me like, no, see, this is why you shouldn't have moved it without consulting us. Someone probably saw you. I was like, I have no idea what happened, guys. I'm so sorry. Fuck you guys using a Boca the Rat emote. I was like, guys, I have no idea where it went. I'm so sorry. I should have told you. They got mad at me. We talked it out a little bit, but ultimately we came to the conclusion that we have to find it as the 8 of us, and we're still gonna honor this together. All 8 of us are gonna come out on top. Now I had an amazing chance to be the hero. I know where the gnome is. It's in the stump in the woods. I can be the hero at the end of the day that goes and grabs the gnome, hides it one more time, and ultimately wins the prize for everyone, right? I could be this hero. It was the last night at this point. There was about an hour left until it was time to reveal where the gnome was, which meant I had an hour if I wanted to do this. And what was happening was we were playing one more giant game in the field, basically like a capture the flag style game. The forest was off limits. To make it worse, there was teachers guarding the forest to make sure that kids just didn't go into the woods and get lost. So now I'm thinking to myself, how do I do this? How do I save this for our group of 8? How can I get past the teachers, get the gnome, and hide it successfully? And that's when it hit me. I could talk to the 3 people. And so what I told them was I managed to get all of us together and I said, guys, one of us needs to go check on the stump. We need to make sure that the gnome's still there. So that way we know we've got the prize. And they're like, yeah, I agree with you. And so I said, the problem is there's too many teachers guarding. How are we going to slip by? And they were like, well, we're going to have to like get the teacher's attention. And I was like, yeah. Okay, how about this? You guys go obviously try to get into the woods. The teachers will turn to you and I'll go when the teachers aren't looking. They 100% did that. The 3 friends distracted the teachers enough for me to slip into the woods, go to the stump, reach in completely blind. There is no greater fear than reaching into a deep, dark hole in the middle of the night. Even though I know there's a gnome in there, holy shit, that was terrifying. I reached in and I felt the gnome. This is it. Oh my God. I pulled out the gnome, and now I'm thinking to myself, I just have to hide it and tell my 8 friends that we have the gnome. So what I did was I went and hid it back under the cabin that I hid it under the first time because I remembered the number. I knew where it was. I buried it again under the leaves, and I came back to the field and kept playing. I then went up to the teacher and I said, hey, I've got the gnome. It's under this cabin. I can grab it after this game. He said, perfect. He then said, are you teamed with anyone to share the prize with? And it was at this moment that I realized I hadn't told anyone yet. I could claim the whole prize to myself. So I looked my teacher dead in the eye and I said, no, it's just me. Oh my God. What ended up happening was later that day, my group of 3 came back up to me and they said, Elijah, I managed to slip away later too. The gnome wasn't in the stump. What? No! No, don't tell me the gnome wasn't in the stump. The best part is coming up, chat. The best part is coming up. At the very end of the night, we are all gathered around the campfire pit right here. After sitting around the campfire for a bit, it's the final night. One of the kids asks, what happened to the gnome? All of a sudden, a bunch of people were like, hush, hush, hush. Oh my God, like what happened? Like, oh my God, I haven't seen the gnome the whole time. Some people were like, I had the gnome at one point. My 8 friends were like, dude, we had the gnome too. We were gonna share the prize. And I was like, just sitting there in dead silence because I was waiting for it. The teacher turns to the whole class and says, Elijah, will you please go get the gnome that you hid? Holy shit. Every single person at that campfire, boom, eyes on me. Everyone was pissed. I just said, can I please get a flashlight so I can go find it? Everyone was like, he doesn't have it. We were teamed together. There's no way he has it. I went into the woods to the cabin that had the number with a flashlight. I found the gnome. I came back with the gnome and I handed it to the teacher and I said, here you go. You guys spamming emotes. It's not even registering. It's just text. It's just text. Do you guys want to know what the prize was? Because you guys might change your opinion. Maybe the prize was worth it. Was a shoebox full of full-size candy bars. And when you're in grade 6, that was the greatest prize of all. 40 or 50 full-size chocolate bars. Like, it was insane. And as I go up and grab the shoebox, the teacher looks at me. He's like, I would highly consider that you share that with the people that you just hurt. Man, I wish I could say, yes, I will share it. But what I said was, I will consider it. You want to know the worst part? You want to know it gets worse, chat. I had to go back to the room that I shared with those 8 guys. I was sharing a bedroom with them the whole time. They threw my mattress into the hallway. They said I am not welcome in their friend group anymore. I looked at them and I was like, but I'm gonna give you a chocolate bar. They dead ass looked at me. They're like, it's deeper than the chocolate bar. They were fucking mad. In the end, I did split the chocolate evenly amongst the original 8 group. I did not give any chocolate to this group of 3. They were always the side piece. They were not gonna get any. But when we got back, they did not talk to me for a couple weeks. Chat, you would have done the same thing. The group of 8 became shattered. I was scared that half of them were gonna betray the other half. So it was eat or be eaten, chat. I had to do it. Does this change your guys' opinion of me? Yes. Yeah, oh my God. Nope, get the bag. Nero understands. You know what's funny is I'm only friends with, I think, one of those people now. He was the best man at my wedding. So he couldn't have been that mad, chat.